Hey Chris, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing,
Pleasure
Alan?
to have you here. Thank you for coming. I checked your LinkedIn, and this whole meeting is coming because of the LinkedIn and because of the content that you're creating there. I would love to ask you to share a bit about you. What are you doing? Why are you doing? Most importantly,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so definitely awesome. Thank you for having me on here. I've always kind of wanted to be on these kind of like style like podcasts. I always like watch a lot of like Joe Rogan, like different podcast styles. So it's cool to actually, have the opportunity. And that's kind of what led me to this whole like path of basically creating content on LinkedIn because by trade I am a principal software engineer. I've been in the industry probably like 6 years now, 7 years, I would say. And I came from like a very different path of
you
I was
came.
a salon owner and I was self-employed for like 15 years. I had a handyman business. I had a furniture import company. Like I was just doing a bunch of different things. And I think like most people, like COVID came around and, it was like, all right, well, my salon shut down. My businesses are shut down. And I've always loved writing code and just kind of doing tech on my own. Well, maybe it's the time to kind of do it. So I went ahead and just joined a boot camp that I found. And I was like, we'll just see how this goes. And I guess it was lucky, but unlucky. But my salon got shut down. So I was able to focus 100% on it. That's the journey that I've just kind of been on now, and now starting this kind of new content, journey a little bit too.
You took completely other path at the same time. Like you worked in engineering, then there is always like a two paths for engineers, right? You either become more like introvert and just close yourself in the room, do only coding and never talk about anything else, or you go and do like share your journey, educate others, make some difference. Why did you choose exactly like this one? Is it more close to you, or you feel like that you've outgrown the space in terms of engineering projects that can offer the market, and you're like, okay, it's time to share my journey because it's more interesting than the job that market is offering right now?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a combination. I have my points in time where I'm just like I'm gonna shut the door, I'm gonna turn off the lights, I'm gonna sit here and just like go hardo coding for like 12 hours and build a project and work like that and really get in the zone. But then I think it's also the other side too is they're especially in this kind of day and age where we're at with AI and everything. There's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to software engineering and just all of the advancements when it comes with AI. So I wanted to like help others kind of navigate that too, right? Because I think we're all just kind of in the same pot with it. And I think if I can share my journey and the things that I'm going through with that, it may be able to resonate with some other people and it may be able to help them kind of find their path in this field too.
I can see in your head the Syntax Summit, and as far as I know, you're the founder of it, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm one of the founders of it, and this was kind of like along the idea of what I was kind of talking about. Kind of shifting into being more
You
less
came.
introvert, right? Being more of an extrovert, especially in our field. So Syntax Summit it's a monthly workshop that I created with two of our other like founders in the Florida market space. And the idea behind it was we wanted to build a community, which I know that's a very big thing. A lot of people kind of say, obviously, like, but we wanted to build more than just like it was almost like a family, right? Of like engineers, developers, where we can all meet once a month. We'll have like either a speaker or workshop, and it's like hands on keyboard. We're all learning together. And the kind of the why behind it was we wanted to have build these relationships. So if one person were to fall, like let's say they would lose their job or something like that, we would have a group of people that could rally around that person and help them up. Because I think that's obviously one of the big topics in our industry is what happens if I get axed. Now I'm competing with thousands of other engineers, and especially from these FANG companies, right? Like it's hard if you're a regular developer at a regular company. How are you supposed to kind of compete with someone who was an i7 staff software engineer at Netflix? You know what I mean? It's just very hard to kind of compete, so it's daunting.
Yeah, and it's a big problem in the market because you may as a company, you may lose a lot of good talents because if you're focusing on the big brands on their portfolio. Whereas this is quite a problem in game development space. I know maybe you heard about the whole Ubisoft layoffs and stuff that is happening for that company because everyone has the Ubisoft on their portfolio, but the code base and the quality is always struggling. And whereas, like, very recently, one of their guys, he left the company, he opened a small studio, he hired developers from Reddit, and they built a game with like 30 people or something, and it became number one in the space. And whenever they took an interview from him, he said like, yeah, I became very bored sitting in the Ubisoft and doing nothing. And I was like, okay, I will create my own game and I'll just hire developers from Reddit. So yeah, that's a quite big problem, and I believe it's more like an internationally way. I had the same struggle when I just started my development path back in the time where I was working with companies who are more like an outsourcing companies and they don't have those big names with them. And the struggle is real. Like you're always the last one when it comes to like picking you in terms of like for the position of the job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's such a cool story, right? Because I think that's what a lot of internally, a lot of developers, our engineers kind of strive for. It's always like, I'm going to build this like thing on my own and it's going to blow up and then I'm going to do this big exit and stuff. That's, I think, behind every developer. We all feel that. We all kind of want that. And that's why we do these little side projects and we're like, this could actually maybe be something. So it is cool to actually hear a story of someone who's like, yeah, I mean, I love games. I'm just going to build one myself and I'll just hire a few people. And it works. It's crazy.
Yeah. They most probably will get a nomination of the Game of the Year or something. It's like a very good success story, how to do your job and get the shit done and just rely on the Reddit people. Very recently, I saw one of your posts on LinkedIn. You're trying to help to motivate junior developers in the space as much as possible. That was my first impression of your content. And it's quite important right now because we can see that AI can easily replace even mid-level developers already. And what do you think, I have my own thoughts, but I would love to hear yours as well. Why do we still need developers? Why do we need junior developers to grow and to enter the market despite all the struggle?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's going to come down to more than just coding, right? Where we all know that AI can generate code extremely fast, faster than anybody can kind of do it. But there's limitations, right, to what it can do, especially on very large, complex problems. Of course, if you're just going to build a landing page, yeah, I mean, if that's your sole position, you might need to start looking for something else, right? Because it can do that very well and very fast. I mean, we'll just be real about that. But when it comes to an actual developer, and a junior developer, especially, you need to start looking outward in what other values can you provide outside of the coding. Yes, you can moderate the code. You can understand, the changes maybe AI is working with and using AI as a tool. But that's how more senior and mid-level engineers work. We look at the entire software development lifecycle, right? It's not just the code. Yes, the code is a big part of it, but it's being able to work with business, on different stakeholders and requirements and the users. It's being able to work with designers and implementing those designs. That's where, AI still kind of hasn't touched yet because it can't. I mean, it can understand the context of the problem and the solution. But when it comes to okay, well, here's the problem, but you need to have all this other context of what this company is, what the business is, why we're even doing this. And that's where a junior engineer can be that middle ground for translating that to the rest of the company, right? That's going to be those skills that we're going to have to really start building up. And I think also just using AI as a tool, right? Not as a replacement. Don't just sit here and copy and paste too. I think I also talked about that in one of my posts, and I'll even find myself doing it sometimes and I have to stop, right? I think we all do it because it is so easy. I can write this for loop, but it would be just so much easier if I can just type it in AI, copy and paste. But I think the difference is understanding what it's actually doing. using that critical thinking kind of muscle and understanding.
Yeah, I got myself in the very same space very recently where I was like, even if you're using the cursor, for example, it's phenomenal how quickly he understands the context that you want to write down, even if he started to give you multiple choices. And I was doing it for like maybe a week or two. And on the third week, I already started to feel in myself that like, oh, something changes on me. Like, I'm supposed to think here, but I'm not thinking. I'm just directly going there, which is becoming a big problem. I would love to hear your point when you're starting all your career, when you jump into the engineering finally because of all of the problems. What obstacles really tested your the resiliency in some sort of way? How did you push through those tough spots in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's daunting for anybody that kind of comes into, a new career and especially like a new company, even in general. Like, even if you've been in the field, when you have to like ramp up and learn the code base, you have to learn all the different processes because every company is going to be different, right? That was the biggest challenge for me. And especially not coming from a real like enterprise level, like development team, things are different, right? Like, there's different like modalities of teams. Of you have your back end team, your front end team, your DevOps, your infrastructure, QA, design, and then engineering manager and all this kind of stuff. So it's a lot to take in. And that was probably one of the biggest struggles for me because I came from that self-employed like background and that kind of mindset, right? Where I made the decisions of what was going on. So, having to take a little step back, was a little tough for me, but I think I was able to keep that, and I've talked about a lot, it's this like ownership mindset, right? Where I would basically treat every bug, like when I was a junior, I was just getting all the ramp off of all the bugs, right? But I would treat every bug like it was my own little business, where this application I'm working on is my application. This is my company. So I'm going to treat this bug. I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities, test the hell out of it. But then I think where most engineers or developers kind of get it wrong is as soon as they make that PR, I'm done. You know what I mean? That's kind of it. So I think a lot of it is seeing it all the way to production, seeing it through the testing cycle, seeing it all the way through, and making sure everything's good along the way, because it makes you become more dependable, I guess you could say, right, to your team. And that was kind of the struggles that I was having, like, how can I become this dependable person on this team and ramp up really quickly on this team?
How long it takes from you to like actually develop that skill?
So luckily I move very fast, and I think it's because I'm very impatient with things. But I came in as a junior, and I saw, everyone's working, and I quickly like picked up what the processes were, everything like within, the first maybe month. But then when I realized what I was like, okay, let me see if I can streamline these processes and try to just outwork everybody. And I quickly basically like moved very quickly in the sense of I knew I wanted to be a senior. Like, that was my goal. Like, I hated the junior title. I don't know. It was just a personal thing. So I knew I wanted to become senior. So I would look at what the seniors were doing on the team, and I would just essentially replicate it and just try to do it better. And even though I wasn't getting that paid salary of a senior or the title of a senior, I was like, I'm going to act like a senior. So pretty much I was able to do that junior to senior in 12 months, basically, which is pretty fast for most companies.
That was one of my questions, that I wanted to know the story behind this 12-month seniorship, because I mean, there's always another part of it also. When you're talking about becoming a senior in the engineering space, you can be a senior for one company, but you can be like a junior for another one. Yeah. And it's very hard to like find that fine line between being a senior for all of them and being a senior for your company only. What's the scenario for you? How did you manage to like find that fine line and stay into it?
Yeah, it is. And I do say this a lot, right? Where, I mean, at the end of the day, really, titles don't matter. I think titles really just matter when you're trying to jump companies, maybe. But in the company you're at, it really doesn't matter. And if you have a very strong, like, hierarchy of things, which I've heard some companies, and it's almost a little like off-putting, where it's like, you're a junior, keep your head down, you can't say anything in meetings and stuff, which is weird to me. But it is very hard because like I'm a principal engineer now at a company like Netflix. I'm probably like maybe a senior, mid-level senior, right? As far as like roles and responsibilities and stuff like that. But I think that's what it does come down to, your roles and responsibilities. So when you're a junior, really you're just worrying about the code. You don't worry about, you just get the ticket, you get the feature, and that's what you just work on. As you move up into like the mid-level, it's more like, okay, I need to start like seeing, bloating this out a little bit. Okay, I got this feature, but how does this affect the user? You know, how can we kind of implement this in a way where it can scale a little bit more? And then like maybe thinking a year down, if I have to work on this code a year down the road. But then when you get into that senior, you're thinking a lot more like, okay, how can I make this code so everyone can, right? So these are kind of the basic, like, it's very obviously like not as, I'm making it less complex, obviously, right? But I think when you get into that senior position, you have to now see how this works with the team, because you have to also convey a lot of this stuff with business, with designers, and with QA, and all the different stakeholders in it. So it's not literally just about writing the for loop anymore, right? It's now expanded out into the entire ecosystem of the software.
How long did it take you when you entered it like a junior position? How long did it take you to understand that game?
I would probably say it probably took me about 2 months, I would say, to really like understand, you know, the processes and see the roles and responsibilities of everyone else, right? Where they were like, I was just given bugs and like, hey, just learn the application. And I think everybody needs that, you know, where you need those first couple weeks, first month or two, just work on bugs, because you're gonna learn the application fastest, right? If something's broken in this module and it ties to this module, you're gonna find that connection very quickly. But once you kind of get your footing in the application, I mean, I think it's like you can ramp up very quickly, right? The other stuff is a lot easier to grasp.
And also, I believe reading the code, not just like debugging, but actually reading the code or reading the code base that it's even out of your scope. Like it's just like some sort of SDK or a library, and you just go there and start digging. It's also helpful, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, you have to go deep into things to really understand what's going on, right? Like you can't, like you said, reading the code and not just like, and reading it and understanding it is a huge aspect. Like why, and especially if there are no comments on it, you know, why did the person 6 months ago write it this way? Like this is really weird. And I think this thing I've realized, it also happens to myself too. I'll write code and I'm like, oh, this is the best. Like this is so clean, like it's so efficient. And then it's like 6 months later, I look at it and I'm like, what kind of dumbass wrote this? And I click and it's like my name and I'm like, what am I doing?
You were thinking that it's a perfect one.
Exactly. Exactly.
Can you tell me like what actually principal engineering role means, and what are the responsibilities for you? Because it's also quite different thing that is happening in the market. There is new roles coming out from everywhere, and the same role can have completely different scope of responsibilities per company.
Yeah. No, and it does, like, it was kind of like what I was saying earlier. Like being a principal at my company is way different than being a principal at like Amazon, right? The roles and responsibilities are vastly different, but the general sense of it is, once you, I love the saying, I forgot where I heard it from, but I was always told the farther up you go, the farther away from the code you get, right? Because as soon as you kind of cross that senior threshold and you get into like, there's principal, there's like tech lead, there's I don't know,
Engineering managers.
engineering managers, VP of engineering, you know what I mean? Like all those roles, you're moving more into like a people manager. So if there's like a clear distinction, it's like you're now 60% or 70% of your responsibilities are now going to be managing a team, growing a team, but you're also now, like what I was saying, when you were senior, you're kind of looking in the outward picture, looking like a year ahead. You're looking as a principal like way ahead. You're seeing like what new technologies can we start looking at now that would work, that we can maybe implement in 2 years, right? Or what steps do we now need to take? It's almost like playing 4D chess, where you have to like see things and determine, is this going to be a fit for our company, where we're going as a company to implement this and start getting the traction on this right now. So that's the biggest difference when it comes to principals and seniors.
We're still in the middle of managing people and managing technology when it comes to principal level. Did I get it right?
Exactly. When you move into that engineering manager, you're strictly more just people managing, right? And just putting people in the right places. Principal's nice because at my heart, I'm a builder, right? I love hands on the code. Like I won't go any higher than principal. I'll tell you that right now. I'm just not interested.
Why?
Because I think I mean, I love being in the code still. You know, even though I get pulled into a ton of meetings and, you know, with like different like stakeholders, and I try to be as much as I can in the code. Like if a new feature comes in and I'm breaking it down, like I'm like, all right, I'm going to take care of this section because I want to still build, right? Where at larger companies, you won't have that opportunity. You are strictly like just people managing, which is fine.
Bureaucracy.
Well, that's the other thing too. Exactly.
So basically, you're mainly working with small companies. You prefer to work with small companies rather than big tech giants, despite the fact that, for example, the same big tech giant can bring you a very good portfolio.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I have a lot of friends who work at like the big thing, like, you know, Netflix and Meta and Amazon and stuff. And yes, they make absurdly a good amount of money, right? Between their like stock options and everything like that. It's also hard because I think it all depends on where you're at in life. If we had this conversation maybe 3 years ago when I was in this like super grind mode, like I'm working 60 hours a week, like I'm just coding as much as I can. Yeah, I think I would have probably wanted to be in like that big FANG kind of company. But where I'm at now in life, you know, like with family and stuff like that, I cherish more work-life balance, right? Where it's like, okay, it's 5 o'clock, it's 5:30, like I'm good, right? I don't need to sit here and kill myself anymore. And I think and it's hard to say, every position is different at those bigger companies, but that's kind of the culture around it, where you're getting paid very well, but you are working very hard, like, you know, putting in those 80 hours, sometimes 100 hours a week, you know, building on these features. So it's a trade-off. I prefer work-life balance nowadays.
I can relate for that most of the time. Although, like, I don't know, maybe I'm still in the phase that you were a couple of years ago. I just love this combination of creating new things, coding, and a bit managing. And because of that, like, my weekly agenda is like 70% coding, 30% some other stuff. Although I try to keep the balance just for the sleep, right? 1 p.m. I went to the sleep, 6 a.m. I wake up, and that's it. That's the whole balance that I have right now.
Yeah.
It's exactly how you said. It's just a trade-off. You should pick one of them.
Exactly. And it's kind of what your passion is at that point in time, because I think people's passions change all the time. Like, I love coding, but now I'm also very big in this like content, like creation kind of stuff too. And I like to like combine those kind of worlds. So it's like you see a lot of like my YouTube I do, or my LinkedIn. It's like I talk about coding or I talk about developer stuff, you know, so, and that's kind of one thing I'm fascinated about. So it's like I'll stop my coding or like, you know, job at like 5:30, but then 6 o'clock till midnight, I'm working on like, you know, the content stuff, because that's at that point I'm obsessed with it, or I'm building projects I find very interesting. So it's kind of like and I think that's a little bit of what I was saying, the trade-off with working at a big company. I would rather work on personal stuff that I want to make instead of working that extra 30 hours a week on, you know what I mean, for another company, I guess you could say.
Yeah, true. I truly agree with you. I mean, you're talking like this now, but if we go back for a couple of years, like let's take a look at 3 years ago when you're in your hustle mode. I'm sure you're sure also there's a lot of sacrifices when it comes to engineering, getting good at engineering, getting good in programming languages, because the main hustle and main sacrifices is related more the same work-life balance, going to see friends in the bar or sit at home, like learn something new. What's that like one of the biggest sacrifices that you made, in your opinion, that like now you can take a look back and say, okay, this was like a very big sacrifice, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it I did. I busted my ass, right? Like, and I think a lot of people, they see like the success that you have, or they call it luck, which also is like a very annoying term to me, right? Because I don't think anybody's lucky. They're just in the right place because they built themselves to be in that right place at that right time. But I sacrificed a lot. That first year, I would say the first 2 years I was there, like I killed my time off. Like this is getting a little crazy, but no, I mean, I was so obsessed, right? And it was unhealthy how obsessed I was. And I mean, I was newly married and stuff like that too. So it was a little bit of a balance, but luckily, like my wife is amazing. Like she understood like why I was driving so hard, right? Like I was doing this for us. So she was willing to kind of accept that a little bit of a sacrifice of me working until 10 o'clock, me working until midnight, and then getting up at 6 a.m. and doing it all over again, right? Where maybe we didn't, or I wasn't able to go out because I had to like get this feature done, or I like made these promises that were a little bit too overstretching of myself. And I'm not sad that I did that, because it put me in a position now where I have a little bit more of that seniority, and I have that people know the capabilities I have, where I don't have to do that anymore, right? I don't have to prove myself anymore because I've already done it. So now I can kind of be a normal be a normal developer on a normal schedule, luckily.
Mentioned about failures and like the social media train hype of always speaking about the successes, the luck, so called. But I had like this question, and I'm asking to all my guests, what's your biggest failure that like really shaped your path or your mindset?
You know, it was a very big failure, but it just put me on a different road. And it's funny, I made like a video about this too, because it was a very huge shift in like my career and my life, where I think I was a couple months out of the boot camp. This was when I first was trying to like find a job, and I was getting so many rejections. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that, right? Because it's tough. Like, especially when you get the automated message and it's like, you couldn't even give me the time or day to just give me a personal message. It's like, dear candidate. It's like, I have a name, right? So I was getting all these no's. And then I got hit up by this recruiter. She was like, you would be perfect for this job. You know, I think you would do great. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, I'm ready. Let's apply. Well, she kind of forgot to tell me that I think I was going up against like 700 other applicants, which at that time back then was a ton. Nowadays, it's like there's like 4,000 applicants. You know what I mean? So it's not as bad. But so I was like second guessing myself. I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to get past all of these people, like who probably have way more experience than me, have way more, you know, a better portfolio, better personal projects, whatever it might be. But long story short, it was a month-long interview process. I made it through all the rounds. I ended up making it to the final two. And I was like, okay, I was like, this is it. Like, this is it's meant to be. The stars are aligning. Like, I am going to get this job. And I met with it was like a round table, I think, the final interview with like the CEO and stuff, just getting like a basic understanding of the company. And then I got the email, and it was like, we're going with the other candidate. And I just thought I was like, I was ready to quit. Honestly, I really was. Like, I thought at that point, like, it's just a sign from the universe that no, I'm not supposed to be in this job. And to back it up a little bit, I didn't know anything about it was Angular, the framework, and I was coming from a React, like, right, and not too many people actually work in Angular. But I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity. I'm going to learn it. So I within that month, like I learned Angular. I looked at their website, I think, and I built like one of their components in Angular, and I sent it off with, some of my stuff to their engineering team. And I think that's what helped me kind of move up in the interview process, because I was standing out as doing things that were a little bit different. And it felt like that rejection felt like the biggest failure that I've ever had, because I was like, I couldn't just make it past one more interview. But 2 weeks later, I ended up just scrolling on LinkedIn, and I found like a post from some random person I connected with who was like, hey, we're hiring for an Angular position. I was like, I mean, I know Angular now, like, sure. And I ended up getting the job. And I have been there like ever since. And it was like that rejection ended up being like my greatest accomplishment, right? Because it set me onto a path like, hey, this company's not right for you. This one you're going to grow in. So realizing it, looking back now, yes, that was biggest failure, but also biggest achievement.
Wow. What a great story, man. Like you get a rejection and you're thinking about to quit it. And then there's like, boom. And that hunger, like usually the rejection brings back the hunger that you might lose during this hustling period, right? You just need like a little more spark.
Exactly. It's one of those things where I'm sure you've probably seen like those memes or whatever you want to call it. It's like a picture on the top of someone who's like digging a hole, right? And then you can see it's like a bunch of diamonds and a bunch of gold. And then they're like, the person on the bottom is like this far away, and they're turning around because they're like, oh, I'm giving up. Like there's nothing here, right? And it really is like, I've come to realize in my life, there have been so many things that have happened to me where they seemed like failures, and I thought I should just quit. Like, what's the point of even doing this? But it's like, if you can just keep going, you'll always get something out of it. Whether it's a negative thing or whether it's a positive thing, like you're going to get some sort of experience that at that point in time may not seem like valuable, but 2 weeks later, it was the most valuable thing. Like I never would have even looked at Angular if it wasn't for going through that process, right?
Yeah. And it shaped your whole career, basically.
It did. It shaped my whole life, honestly. Like getting that job, and I know that's a bold thing to kind of say, but it did. Like getting the job that I have now gave me the ability to grow at a rapid rate. It gave me the ability to provide for my family. You know what I mean? And it changed my whole life to something I never thought could be real, right? Like getting paid to slap my hands on a keyboard and write code. Like I didn't think that was ever possible, right?
But now you're already a principal engineer. You're working. By the way, are you still working with Angular, or you shift back to React, or what's
Still in Angular. I'm still in Angular, yeah. So
You're still in Angular. Okay, you changed your boot camp. You changed. Okay, do you like it?
I
It
love
seemed-
So it's funny. I love Angular. I think Angular is a fantastic framework because it's a lot of things already built in. But the funniest thing, I go to a lot of conferences and they're all React conferences. And, people are always like, oh, what do you think about the new like React 19 or whatever that came out? I was like, I'm going to be honest. Like, I don't even use React in any form. They're like, well, what the hell are you doing here? And I'm like, well, I'm just here to hang out with everybody. You know what I mean? But no, I think Angular I love is because everything is built in that you need, like all the libraries and, any like third party package like you have, like you don't need to install those, right? Where React is like you have to like bring in all these like libraries and stuff if you're trying to like really scaffold. Like there's a great, I think it's like the JavaScript like or JS like LinkedIn group or whatever, but it's like ramping up like with React. It's like very easy, right? Like you can just ramp up very quickly. And Angular is this very steep like learning curve, right? But then once you like get past that point, like it's smooth, it's easy. You don't need third party libraries, which is great. For the most part, like it's built in a way where you don't need to install those libraries, because I've always felt like any third party I would have to install, if they stop maintaining it, then it's like, well, you're screwed. Like either you fork it and now you have to maintain it, but you don't have that problem. I do love it. But
Do you still also use like a native JavaScript for your own side projects, or mostly focus on Angular?
mostly focus on Angular. I'll use TypeScript. I don't really use like pure JavaScript anymore because I don't know, like the concept of having a var that can be a string up here, but then all of a sudden it's an int, and then oh, all of a sudden it's an array. Oh no, wait a second. No, we're gonna be like, I don't know, whatever. Like within the same file is like I have a German
Change,
background, so we're very strict. You know what I mean? Like I like things very. So TypeScript is like, yes, this is a type. Use the type. If you use any, I will throw your code out the window. Yeah, that's kind of my personal preference on it.
you're using your same personal preference when it comes to interviewing other developers?
No, I mean, I won't be as strict with that in that sense. Like, I think interviewing, it's such a stressful thing. Like, I would never add any extra, like, friction there. Like, here's my thing. I understand leak code. Like, I get it. Like, it's one of those things when you're interviewing something, or not something, when you're interviewing someone, it's very hard to determine this person in 30 minutes or an hour, right? For me, when I'm giving like, problems, I don't really do like leak code, but when I'm giving these kind of problems, I don't care if you can figure out the answer. Like, I really don't care what the answer is. Like, what I care is I want to see your process. Like, I want to see you struggle through this, or if you're going to ask questions, if you're going to ask clarifying questions, because that's how you're going to work as a developer. Like, if we hire someone, there's no point if you run into a roadblock, you're not going to take some time to try to figure out the answer. You're going to automatically bog down like a senior, right? Like, there's really no, like, I need to know that you can run into a roadblock, push through the roadblock, but then also, like, if you get so far and you really can't understand it, then you're willing to then realize that, self-reflection, and go ask for help, right? So for the interview process, no, I'm not a big like hardo on the technical aspect. I think culture is probably one of the biggest things. If you come in and you're like a know-it-all and you think you're very like chauvinistic about it and you think that you're the best engineer in the world, that's cool, but you have to work with 20 other people. Like, that doesn't do anything for me. And that's kind of the mindset you have to think when you're in like a principal level. How is this person going to work with the rest of the team and the culture that we've been building?
Yeah, like the actual knowledge becomes not a big deal anymore, I believe, because you can always teach them what you need them to know, but you can't change their mindset. Most of the time you can't, unless they're like super young and you have some passion and you have some extra free time to spend on that person to make him like or her a very good developer or engineer. Otherwise, it's a no game, basically. You change.
Absolutely. I mean, our job is problem solving. Like, and if you can't solve problems and like work through these hurdles, then I mean, that's the job, right? Like that's kind of the point of it. So it's kind of like these are the unique ways that we'll try to figure out in a 30-minute or in an hour interview. Like, can you do this as full time, right?
What's the hardest question you got during the interview? Was that a technical, or was it like the same way that you were doing right now?
I did get a very hard, like, technical, but I understood why it was so hard because it was unfortunately, I was working with a recruiter, I think, at the time, and they put me in an interview where I was not qualified for it. Like, I will admit, like, did I learn a lot from the interview? Absolutely. But I was not qualified for it. I think coming out of a boot camp, this position was, I think it was a DB like position, but yeah, like it was a DB position. I feel like those are very hard in general, right? Because you're literally messing with like data and how it's stored, and there's like 1,000 other things that come along with that, right? You're not worried about the pixel size of, you know what I mean, or the style guide of something. Yeah. But I remember talking with, I don't know if he was like the VP of engineering or something like that, but pretty much it was something along the lines that they had, I want to say like 30 million rows in their database, and they needed to like, I needed to figure out the best way to like segment these different rows so then it comes back in the most performant way. And it was just a very daunting and complex scenario. And I was just like straight up with him. I was like, look, this is completely out of my wheelhouse. And he was like, I'm glad you said that because like, you know, we can't, which I understand. They couldn't have someone playing around in their database when this database was like equivalent to like a $20 million project, right? Like you can't just have someone who doesn't know what they're doing, like all of a sudden dropping tables or something, you know, because they don't know. So, but that was probably the hardest technical I had to go through, and it was just because I was in the right position for it.
I had a like very reflecting story that is pretty much similar. And it's pretty much the same thing actually, because I wasn't qualified for that job, but the recruiter told me that back at that time it's my second year, I believe, in engineering, and they're like, oh, it's okay, it's fine, it's the same JavaScript. We're asking to do some stuff, you know, React. Was like, yeah, okay, I know. And when I go there, it was like a 4.5 or 5 hour interview immediately. Yeah, and you're not doing interview with one guy. You're doing interview immediately with 4 or 5 developers from the team that you're gonna work. And they're like, the first person comes ask pretty much basic questions regarding the loops, the performance of the JavaScript, how to make it performant, etc., etc. And at some point, they started to ask the questions about Angular and database management, and I was like, oh, guys, I don't know. I was like, okay. You went like you have 5 or 6 minute break before the second one comes, and the second person came, asked the same questions, like literally the same one. It was like, guys, so you just can you please prepare something before
Can you get off the script that you prepared for this? Like,
yeah. And I was like the same thing. I don't know, guys. I'm not qualified for Angular or database management. It's my second year. Ask me anything about JavaScript, CSS. I'm your guy. Not like that stuff. It's like, okay. Where do you learn? I was like, well, my first bachelor was in marketing and public relations. Programming is my hobby, so that's why I'm like hustling a lot. Like, no. There is no way that someone cannot go to like specific degree and become a developer. You're not a developer. You're just a poser. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, see that, and that's unfortunate. Like one of the things, I think it's getting better in the industry, where before you had to have a CS degree, where you wouldn't even really be looked at. And I mean, for me, like I don't even have any degree, right? And
Same.
for a lot of people, I think this piece of paper just kind of means something. Like I get it. When you have a CS degree, you have a lot of theory. You know, you have a lot of like practicality of like data and, you know, algorithms or data structures and algorithms and all this kind of stuff. Like I definitely get it. But just because you went to a class for that doesn't mean that you have actual understanding of it. Like I know plenty of people who have a very great understanding of data structures and algorithms and can write the most performant code, you know, doing a binary search or whatever it might be. They don't have a CS degree. Like they don't, but they wouldn't even get a look at it from a company because of that. Like it would be an automatic road back. It's a tough thing. I think it's getting better, especially with this AI wave. I think it's getting better because you don't have to, like, you have to have an understanding about it, but it's not the
Critical.
major, it's not critical anymore. Right. Exactly.
And the whole culture, you can feel like even before AI, after COVID, the culture started to change a bit, because everyone started to understand the remote work game, and some companies, as soon as they shift into remote, and they understood that like a lot of people who's coming and doing like this CS degree guys, that they're not as performant as they want them to be, because they're more like a 9 to 5 people, you know, man. And I don't have anything against that. I've been in that place. Like it's it's a must thing to do if you want to grow, I would say even. But when it's come to like getting your shit done, finding the new solutions and stuff, you're always looking out for the people who are not restricted with the CS degree, and they wouldn't told that like you have to do this, this, and this. Otherwise, you're done. You're gonna be the first candidate for layoff.
Well, no, and that's a great point. And that was one of the things when I was first looking for a job. I just kept telling myself, I was like, if I just need one shot, someone give me one opportunity, and I will run circles around everybody on your team, right? Like I will go tooth and nail and bend over backwards to make the most out of this, right? Where there's a lot of people who just think like, and it's not everyone. I don't want to categorize anybody, but it's just because you have a CS degree doesn't make you better than anybody else. Like, I mean, it's just a fact. Like, you can learn all that stuff on your own, technically, if you really wanted to. It's just you don't have the structure of having a professor teach you it. You know what I mean?
And the online courses also, that's a completely other story. I mean, everyone can learn it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to, and I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like, it's the structure and the like having to go to class or having to learn this thing. Otherwise, you fail this class. Where if it's like an online course, you're just like, oh, I mean, I'll just do it whenever I kind of get a chance to, and then it's fine. So it's tough.
Yeah, but I mean, we've already said it that it's the core of the game. It's tough, and you have to do it if you want to learn.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't think I ever even told him. Well, I told a couple people about this, but I was like daunted that I always felt this like it was on my back that I didn't have a CS degree. And I was already like a senior at the company I was at, but I actually signed up to go back to school to get a CS degree just because I thought that, yeah, right, it's silly, right? Like I've already like have a job. I already have a career. I'm already at a higher level. And it was just something mentally in the back of my head where I was like, maybe I just need to go. And it's funny. I signed up. I went to school. Like, I did an online school. I did 1 month of it. I knew more than the professor because it was all like theory and no practical actual. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this makes no sense. It's literally a piece of paper at this point. So that lesson ended up costing me $2,400 for that 1 month of, that class that I thought but I mean, it was an expensive lesson, but I guess it was a good lesson.
No, it's a very good lesson for you because now it's not more a lesson, but a real proof, a real example for yourself that you actually outgrow that particular, I would say, trauma, CS degree trauma. You will outgrow it, and you're like, that done. At that point, it's done.
Yeah, no, and it is funny how much of a stigma it is where it would be like, you already have like the job, you already have like, you've already grown at this company, you're doing all this stuff to think that I needed to go back to school and like go get this piece of paper, this degree.
You change.
But a lot of people feel that way. So, whoever's listening on this, maybe they can realize and save themselves $2,400 and not have to go through that.
Yeah, I mean, especially now, I believe the learning curve for software engineering, especially like it became super easy to do like very simple things like application development and this type of thing. Because developers like you, developers like others, so who has the skin in the game, they already try to build the all possible things to make others' life way more easier when they start their onboarding process, right? It's very easy unless you want to go do some LLM or some crazy stuff where even AI don't understand the game.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I think it's important to kind of learn, all of, even with AI, it's still important to learn a lot of the fundamentals, but it's not as necessary to know it like that. Well, I don't know. I feel both ways about it. Like, it is very easy to use AI to do the job, but you can't like fully rely on it because then you're just copying and pasting at that point, and it's it's just not good for you in a sense.
Even in that case, you're becoming very easy replaceable person. Doesn't matter that you're leveraging AI because you don't understand what actually it's doing. We're in a stage of becoming meta programming, becoming more and more like a popular thing, right? Where it's like a truly meta programming. You have to know prompt engineering, and you have a very good software engineering foundation if you want to work in the game. Yeah, I mean, if you know how to leverage AI, you will 100% will keep your job. Doesn't matter how big it can be, because there's always a need of a guy who know how to use it and know how to fix it and know how to interact with it, right?
No, absolutely. And I read a good. I had a buddy. He was like a VP at like Century or something.
You
But
can't.
he actually wrote an article about this, and he's been in the like engineering, like software engineering for like 20 years and stuff. But he had this story where he was working at a bookstore, and he was just learning like software engineering and stuff. I guess this guy came in and he was looking at like this. Oh my god, I don't want to butcher it, but I think it was like a .NET book or something, right? And he's just sitting there like staring at it, and he goes up and he's like, "Oh, can I help you?" And I don't know, I guess this guy like just felt the need to kind of like open up to him or something, but he was like, how am I supposed to learn this new technology? And I guess this guy was like a programmer for a long time, like was doing like COBOL or whatever it might be, right? But he thought that this, .NET he was never going to understand it. Like he was going to fall so far behind, and that this was going to essentially replace him. And, that's kind of how we're feeling, I think, with this whole AI thing now. Like obviously it's a little bit more drastic, but we're sitting here and we're looking at AI and we're like, how am I supposed to learn this? Like, how am I supposed to implement this into my workflow? Like, this is going to like, I can't do this. And it's kind of that turning point where you have to now like realize that yes, AI is here to stay. So how can you strap yourself onto this rocket and just ride with it, right? So
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's total right. But speaking of books and tools and resources and stuff, what are your like top resources or books that you would suggest anyone to like start from there when it comes to like digging into software engineering?
yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like, I mean, you can find all of the technical stuff like online, right? Like YouTube is obviously like a super great way to do that. There's not many books. I think there's a couple that I've read, like I think it's like Modern Software Engineering or something like that. I've been on this very big kick of trying to just figure out like myself. And there's this book, I don't know if you've ever heard of Simon Sinek.
You change.
So he has a book. It's like Start with Why or Find Your Why. And that's like a book that I've been like trying to recommend to a lot of people because I think it's important, even for software engineering. It may not be directly related to it, but it will help you figure out like, why do you love software engineering? Like, why do you want to become a developer? And that's one of the big reasons of how or why I moved so fast was I had a very strong why of I wanted to be a senior developer. And there was like reasoning behind it. Like I wanted to be able to support my family. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to prove to myself I could do this. And when you have this like strong why, you now can base all of your decisions off of it. So if there's a book I think anybody should read or listen to, it's Start with Why and Find Your Why. And I think that just helps you out more than software engineering. It helps you out in life.
Yeah. You mentioned about like the why thing. It's quite interesting because software engineering at some point became super popular because of the salary. And at some point, the whole industry became like a small circuit with people who are passionate about it, unhealthy obsessed.
Oh yeah.
There are people who are unhealthy obsessed with the technology, and there are people who just there to earn money. Just because of that, they don't care about tech. They don't like it. They hate the job, but they continue to do that because it pays well. And at some point, they started to hate themselves because their life becomes miserable because they're spending, for example, if the $1 for you can take 20 minutes to fix, for them it can be 3 or 4 hours, and their life is becoming a nightmare, right? What do you
I
think
think
about it?
that's something just in life and where if it's about the money, like I get it. Like I was even on that train too of like trying to figure out what is the best paying like career, or even that like there's a ton of those videos like day in the life of a software engineer. And it's like I'm gonna make my matcha tea this morning and do my ice bath, and it's like I'm gonna just do one meeting and I'm gonna just press compile and then I'm gonna go have lunch at this 5-star restaurant. Yeah, I mean, sure, those are a lot of the perks and benefits of just working remote. I think, having that opportunity. But yeah, the salaries I think are great and they're very high, but you have to love what you do. Like you have to really just love it. Whatever it is, like if you love coding, you love program, like I love building things and I love problem solving. So that's like hand in hand of what software engineering is. And the people who are in it for the money, I usually don't last that long in it because, like you said, you end up hating or resenting whatever you're doing, and then it just becomes this like weight on your back, right? Where you can do this task in 30 minutes, but you just put it, and you're just not happy. So it's like a whole like philosophical thing of at the end of the day, how much money do you really need? Like usually our decisions in our life have put us in a position where we have to make a lot of money. Like, did you need the $80,000 Model X, Tesla? Probably not. Like, you could have just fine got the Y, but now you have to work and you have to get a high salary job to pay for these things. So you may hate it, but you have to do it now. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to software engineering, I think it has a lot of perks. It has a great lifestyle if you have a remote job. Or I guess some people like working in the office too. I can't. I'm too much of a chatty Cathy for that. But you have to love it. I think anything you do, you have to love
Amen. You change.
it.
You yeah, change. That's all. That's true. Because all backs to your mental health, and it's another type of game at all. Speaking of mental health, how your doggos help you on those critical parts with these critical bugs?
Yeah, no, it is. Honestly, I think they help me get away from the computer a lot of the times, right? When you're working on like a bug or a feature and you're just sitting there and it's not working, you're pounding your head against the wall and you're just like, I'm going to push through it. But then it's like my dogs will be like, hey, it's time for a walk, and I'm like, well, I have this thing I need to do. And no, it's time to go. So I'll take him out and it's so funny. I don't know why I keep fighting it, but it's like every single time I'm running into a roadblock or I just can't figure a problem out. If I just go and do a 10-minute walk, it just either comes to me during the walk or when I come back with like a fresh pair of eyes, all of a sudden it's solved in 30 seconds. So that's the biggest help that they help me with.
Did you saw the meme of the guy who's like battling with the bug and he went to the toilet sitting there 55 minutes or something and the boom, the idea comes and he was like running back to the computer.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that one. I know there's another one that's really funny. It's like the typical like when it's like a couple in bed and the girl's like turned over and she's like, oh, she's probably thinking about other girls, and he's sitting there and he's like, why did that for loop not work?
You changed. Yeah, I mean the engineering jokes is something out of this space. If you find someone who understands it, like it's truly a gem. Is there any new project that you're working on and you would like to highlight here?
Yeah, I am working on this new project actually, and I'm trying to figure out because I love AI, and I'm very big on like agents, right? And creating like these like set of agents that kind of will just help you with all of your tasks. And I want to say it was an Anthropic CEO even said that, there will be a one person like $1 billion company, right? Because they just have an onslaught of like agents and stuff. So I'm actually working on this. I call it persona engineering. instead of like prompt engineering. Yeah, and it's very interesting because I've been playing around with it for like the past couple of months where you create all of these like agent strategists, and basically they help you like create like content or build a personal brand or something like that. So I'm kind of like on this goal right now in this project of like helping other developers build a brand for themselves or give themselves like carve out a space for them, like how I did, a voice in the space. Because I have this, I don't know why, I have this impression that if you can become a subject matter expert at something, but then you can portray this online, whether it be on LinkedIn or X, whatever it might be, you would never have to worry about being on the desperate end of a hiring stick, right? Because your reputation will already precede you. Like for you, if you are the most knowledgeable person with React, but nobody knows that, and then you're just another resume on a pile of desks, with everybody else, it doesn't do anything. But let's say you talked about React all the time, vocally, like online, and you were the known person in the space for that. Like, I think it would be a lot easier for you to now find a job, or never have to worry about finding a job in that space. So it's this concept of persona engineering, creating these AI strategists to basically help developers create a brand and a voice for themselves in an online space. So that's my main project.
Can I use it? Is it online
Yeah.
already?
It's not online yet already. I'm actually working with like two like beta, like going through the modules and seeing if like reproducing. I was actually, so it's a lot of stuff I use for like my LinkedIn where I create, like I have these ideas, but sometimes you just don't know how to formulate them in the right way, or how it's like having a strong hook or having nice storytelling, or like all these kind of things that kind of go with content. So it's helping me kind of shape it, but it's worked out pretty well. I mean, I think over the past like 2 or 3 months using the strategy I've been doing, I think I have like 3.5 million impressions. I ended up getting like, yeah. So it's actually been really interesting. So I'm trying to reproduce it now, and I created these modules. But yeah, I mean, we can definitely talk about if you want to try it and see, maybe it will help you out. That's kind of my goal. I'm so worried. Like, I am worried about this AI thing, and I think a lot of people should too. They should at least respect it in the sense, right? Where coding is not going to be all of it anymore. So it's like if I can give an opportunity for people to now have maybe not even a different outlet, but have a sense of trying to figure out the right way to say it. Basically, to have an outlet for them to never have to worry about finding a job if AI were to take over their responsibilities where they're at now. So, and I think being online, having a presence online could be one of those outlets that could help people. So that's what I'm excited about for it. But, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I would love to try it out. I mean, I'm doing kind of a lot of stuff all the time, and writing down the post, sometimes it can be so difficult to me. Because despite the fact, for example, that we're here, sitting here, we had a very great conversation. I love what you're talking about. And I can seem like a very cool guy who knows how to work with a camera and stuff, but I actually have a lot of problem with that. And I'm always a bit shy. And the same comes to like sharing the message, because sometimes I can find the core of the message, but I have to sit there and think hours and hours how to make this message well. Whereas, for example, the same persona AI can help me to like leverage it to make it more quick and like go do another one and do another one.
And that's what I do. Honestly, it's people ask me all the time. They're like, how do you like, because I tell people, I'm like, well, you should probably be consistent with your posting. And they're like, well, how do you do that? Like, where do you find time to make sure you post every day at 8 a.m.? And I'm like, well, it's very easy. Like Saturday morning, I go outside in my backyard. I have a cup of coffee, and I just spend an hour going through ideas where with my strategist, my LinkedIn, I have a LinkedIn strategist, AI strategist, and I just feed ideas. I have the target audience who I want to speak to, and I end up creating posts for the entire week. I schedule them out, and I don't have to worry about it. So then on Saturday, I do it again. So it's about being organized in the sense of having a content schedule to create these posts, and then having a very rapid framework to be able to create this hook, create this storytelling. Or if you're doing YouTube, create these scripts, YouTube scripts. I'll even be honest with you, like for this, I took some of the show notes and stuff like that, and I built a strategist on it, and I had them ask me back and forth the questions and just workshopped with it, right? Just to get like understanding. And that's a way of using AI I don't think a lot of people are doing. They just want to give a question and have an answer.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not working like that yet. Maybe another year or two, and we might have such tool. But now it's more about, like as I mentioned, this type of meta engineering and meta prompting type of thing. That you actually need to understand how to prompt. So basically, which equals to how to speak with AI, how to talk with them, how to get into the conversation with them and understand what actually they want and they can do.
It's working through the steps with it.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned that you're like doing scheduling of posting, right? Is it working properly? Because like most of the time, everyone, like a lot of LinkedIn strategists or other social media strategists are telling that if you're scheduling, you're reducing your engagements or your content will be invisible, blah, blah, blah.
It's, everybody blames the algorithm, right? Everybody always blames the algorithm. They think it's out to get them because you're Joe Schmo. It doesn't matter. And I'll be brutally honest about it. Like, and I have to be real with myself too. If the idea is not good and it's not interesting, why do people care? So it's like the LinkedIn, YouTube, they want to have their users stay on the platform. Like that's their goal, right? Because it's either YouTube is going to show you ads or LinkedIn. I think they also have ads too in some sense, or, there's something around it where they want users to be on their platform. So if you have a very interesting idea where you have a clear problem, a clear solution, a clear takeaway, and your opinion about it, yeah, I mean, it's easily going to be, they're going to push it out to more people who find it interesting, so they stay on the platform. And they're not tricks, but they're like just ways to convey the message or shape it in a way that hooks people in, right? I think I had a post yesterday, I want to say, or 2 days ago. I think the top statement was, why would companies pay you six figures to just copy and paste from ChatGPT? And it's something that we talk about. We've even talked about today, but I framed it in a way where it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that is true. I think that's at like 300,000 or 400,000 impressions now, right? And interactions and stuff like that. Because LinkedIn's like, hey, this is a very interesting idea that a lot of people are talking about. I'm going to push it out to all those people. So I don't think scheduling, I don't think that has an impact on it, honestly.
And lastly, how people can find you. As you mentioned that you're doing a lot of content on YouTube, on other platforms probably also. You give us where we can find you, where we can follow you.
Yeah, honestly, like LinkedIn is my big like thing. Like definitely follow or even connect with me. There's a lot of people who are like, if you want to connect with me, if you want to have a conversation with me, I love it. I love just talking with people and interacting with people. And then my YouTube is my other big thing. On there, I just talk a lot about just developer skills and soft skills and my ideas around it. But that's my name, Chris D. Graves on there. And then same thing for LinkedIn. I think it's just Christopher Graves on there.
All right, Chris. Thank you very much for coming here today. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your wisdom and knowledge that you share with me and with the listeners. Absolute pleasure to meeting you today. And yeah, we're already connected, so I'll jump up soon and ask you about the persona agent.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. Thank you for having me. I love it. I definitely love. So great to be here.
Great. Thank you very much again. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too.